Hello everyone. In this session, we will look at the Government of India Act of 1935. This act is a very important act because this was a second milestone towards a completely responsible government in India. And this was what we were demanding too. We wanted a responsible government in India. Now, this is important in another way too because a lot of the provisions of our present constitution we have borrowed it from the 1935 Act. Moving on to the features of the Act, the first one is that it provided for the establishment of an All India Federation consisting of provinces and princely states as units. Now, let me tell you what a federation is. See, United States of America is a typical example for a federation. So what we understand by federation is that it is an arrangement for power division. So basically there you have a center or a federal government, and then you have a lot of units, states you can call them, or you can call them federating units. So this is basically an arrangement of power sharing where you have one center and so many units or states attached to it. So in our case in India, we are not a pure federation, but we are quasi-federal state. Because in federation, the states are given more autonomy, whereas in Indian case, states are not given autonomy to that extent. So America is an example for a typical federation. Okay, so the 1935 Act proposed the creation of an All India Federation, and who will constitute or what will be the constituting units? Provinces and princely states. Now, note the difference between provinces and princely states. See, provinces were directly under the British rule, and princely states were those states which were ruled by the local Indian kings, but indirectly by the British, of course. Okay, now the first provision is All India Federation, and accordingly, to have an All India Federation, we were supposed to divide powers between the center and the units. See, when we have a center and the units, we are supposed to tell both the center and the units what their area of authority is, right? So, in today's context, we have a union list, state list and concurrent list. If any subject falls in the union list, the center will decide over it or has full authority over it, like your defense, communication and all those things, finance, foreign relations, yes. Now, in case of state list, I'm talking about our present constitution, okay. So in today's context, state list will have subjects like police and all. Coming to concurrent list, there's a third category called concurrent list where both the center and the states can rule side by side without a clash, of course. Okay, so the details of the list we will be seeing in the later chapters, but for the sake of the 1935 Act, the Act provided for three lists. One was Federal List. This had 59 items over which the center could decide. Now there was a Provincial List which was meant for the provinces or the units, and they had 54 items. And there was a third list called the Concurrent List, and the list had 36 items. Now concurrent list, as the term implies, it's a list on which both the federal or the central government and the provincial or the state governments could make laws or could act. Okay, now there was something else also called residuary powers, and this was given to the viceroy. Now, what are residuary powers? See, residue itself means something that is left over. So there can be subjects or items that have not fallen into any of the above three lists. So such items will come under the residuary power of the viceroy. In today's context, the residuary power is with the central government, right? But according to the 1935 Act, residuary powers were given to the Viceroy. But remember that this federation never came into being because the princely states simply refused to join it. Now, the second feature of the Act is that it abolished diarchy in the provinces and introduced provincial autonomy in its place. We had already seen what diarchy is. This is a system of dual government. You might be remembering that we saw that the subjects were provincial subjects were divided into transferred lists and reserved lists, right? Okay, so now that system was abolished in the provinces and in its place provincial autonomy was introduced. Now this meant that provinces are now a little more autonomous units of administration in their own defined area of administration. Now, remember that this act introduced responsible governments in provinces, which means that the governor was now required to act with the advice of ministers responsible to the provincial legislature. So the governor was supposed to act on the advice of the ministers, and they are in turn responsible to or answerable to the provincial legislature or the provincial lawmaking body. But even this came into effect in 1937 but was later on discontinued. Moving on to the third feature of the Act, it provided for the adoption of diarchy at the center. We saw that diarchy was abolished in the provinces, but when diarchy was abolished in the provinces, it introduced diarchy in the center through this act. So consequently, as we already know, the federal subjects were now divided into reserved subjects and transferred subjects. See, reserved subjects and transferred subjects. But again, this also did not come into operation, unfortunately. Now the fourth feature is it introduced bicameralism in 6 out of 11 provinces. So by 1935 we had 11 provinces, and it introduced bicameralism. You might be remembering, right? We had already seen it. Bicameralism means that there will be two houses to the for like the upper house and the lower house. Like we have the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha today. So today we have bicameralism because we have two houses at the center, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, the upper house and the lower house. The same way bicameralism was introduced in 11 provinces, basically Bengal, Bombay, Madras, Bihar, Assam and United Provinces. It meant that these 6 provinces will have an upper house called the Legislative Council and a lower house called the Legislative Assembly. Next feature is the Act extended the principle of communal representation. Principle of communal representation was now extended, and please note that the depressed classes or the scheduled castes were now given a separate electorate, and even women and laborers. Sixth feature is it abolished the Council of India. See, what was Council of India? This was a body established by the Government of India Act of 1858 to assist the Secretary of State for India. Right? There was a Secretary of State for India who was responsible for Indian affairs, and he was a member of the British Cabinet. And to assist him, there was a Council of India. Now, the Act of 1935 abolished the Council of India and instead provided the Secretary of State with a team of advisors. Next feature is it extended franchise or the voting rights, but even now only 10% of the total population had voting rights. Next feature is it provided for the establishment of a Reserve Bank of India to control the credit and currency of the country. Remember, the Reserve Bank of India was established by this act, by the Act of 1935. Next feature is it provided for the establishment of not only a Federal Public Service Commission but also a provincial public service commission and joint public service commission for two or more provinces. We had seen that there was a federal public service commission already, but by this act, provincial public service commission related or equated with the state public service commissions of today, and joint public service commissions for two or more provinces together. Now, the last feature of the act is it provided for the establishment of a federal court in the country, and accordingly the federal court was established in 1937. Thank you.